I slammed the gavel down on the kitchen table that night, not because I had won, but because it felt right, like the judge's own, echoing through our cramped Brooklyn brownstone. You're suing me? For what? Existing without your permission. My voice cracked like cheap crystal, but the words landed heavy, slicing the air between us. Mom's eyes, those watery blue saucers I'd once drowned in for approval, narrowed to slits, and Dad just crossed his arms, his flannel shirt bunching like a noose around his neck. It's for the family, Lizzie, he muttered, as if that erased the fact they'd dragged my name through court papers, claiming I owed them the house I'd scraped together every dime for, all so they could hand it to Sarah, my sister, the eternal black hole of our bloodline. It started 6 months earlier, back when the ink on my real estate closing was still wet, and the American dream felt like something I could finally touch. I'd clawed my way up from that same kitchen table, nights blurring into mornings at the ad agency in Midtown, pitching campaigns for luxury condos I could never afford until that one viral spot for a craft beer brand netted me a bonus fat enough to cover the down payment on a fixer-upper in Bed-Stuy. 3 bedrooms, creaky oak floors, a backyard big enough for the dog I swore I'd get once life slowed down. It wasn't paradise, but it was mine. Earned. The deed had my name, Elizabeth Harper, stamped bold as a billboard. Sarah called that afternoon, her voice a slurry whine through the phone. Lizzie, oh my God, you bought a house, without telling us. She was crashing at Mom and Dad's in Queens. Same as always. Her freelance graphic design gigs evaporating faster than her latest boyfriend. At 32, she was a year older than me but light years behind, tattoos snaking up arms that hadn't lifted a paintbrush in months. Hair dyed electric blue one week, shaved bald the next. Mom always called her the creative one, the free spirit, while I was the practical drone, the one who paid the electric bill when Dad's pension checks bounced. I laughed it off then.
Yeah, Sarah.
It's real. Come see it sometime. But sometime never came. Instead, 2 weeks later, a process server knocked on my door, sweaty guy in a polo, envelope trembling in his hand like it was radioactive. Elizabeth Harper? You're being sued by Harold and Margaret Harper for undue influence and breach of familial trust. I ripped it open right there on the stoop, neighbors peeking through blinds. And there it was, my parents, my own flesh, accusing me of manipulating them into withholding a family asset. The house. They'd spun some yarn that I'd promised it to Sarah years ago, back when we were kids fighting over the last Pop-Tart. And now, with her going through a rough patch, it was time to make good. Rough patch. That's what they called it when Sarah torched her way through life. The DUIs I'd bailed her out of, twice, using my savings from that first shitty internship. The credit cards in my name she'd maxed out for art supplies that turned out to be blow and bad decisions. And the big one. The secret I'd buried deeper than Grandma's ashes. 5 years ago, Sarah had gotten popped for embezzling from the nonprofit where we both volunteered. Kids Literacy Program. For Christ's sake. She'd skimmed 10 grand for a gallery opening that was just a rager in a Williamsburg loft. I found out when the auditors came calling, and instead of letting her rot in Rikers, I confessed.
Me.
Said it was a mix-up in my bookkeeping duties. Community service. A slap on the wrist. And a lifetime of Moms You Should Have Known Better. Lizzie lectures. I took the fall because family sticks, right? Blood's thicker than the Hudson. But blood curdles too. The lawsuit hit the local paper, some fluff piece in the Queen's Chronicle about sibling rivalry turns legal in property dispute, And suddenly I was the villain. The selfish career girl hoarding bricks while my struggling artist sister slept on a futon. Friends texted awkward sympathies. My boss pulled me aside for a wellness check. I lawyered up with a cut-rate firm in Flatbush. Some guy named Mort who chain-smoked menthols and called everyone champ. First hearing was a circus. Mom dabbing tears with a lace hanky. Dad droning about sacrifices for the greater good. Sarah fidgeting in the back row, picking at her chipped nail polish like it was a scab. Your Honor, Mort wheezed, waving the deed like a white flag. MS. Harper purchased this property with her own funds. No coercion. No promises, just hard work. The judge, a no-nonsense black woman with silver streaks in her bun, peered over her glasses. And this alleged verbal agreement from childhood? That's your evidence. Mom launched into her sob story, then, voice pitching high like a bad opera. Lizzie always had everything, good grades. That fancy job. Sarah's the heart of this family. But life's been cruel to her. That house. It's her fresh start. Sarah nodded solemnly. But I caught her smirking. That sly curl of her lip she'd had since we were 10, when she'd blame me for the cookies she'd eaten. I wanted to scream. Fresh start? This was the same sister who'd crashed my college graduation party, puked on the dean's shoes, then ghosted for a year to find herself in Portland, leaving me to explain to Mom why the family photos looked like a funeral procession. But I bit my tongue, because that's what I do, swallow the shards so no one bleeds. Court adjourned with a temporary injunction. I couldn't sell, couldn't move in fully. Just twiddle thumbs while they mediated. Mediation.
Huh.
That meant Mom's church ladies baking casseroles laced with guilt, Dad quoting Leviticus about honoring thy father, and Sarah batting lashes like a Bond girl. Nights blurred after that. I'd lie on the air mattress in my half-unpacked living room, staring at water stains on the ceiling that looked like accusing faces. Revenge? It flickered at first. A candle in a windstorm. Not the cartoon kind. No Molotovs through windows or anonymous tips to the cops. This was American revenge. Slow burn. The kind that simmers in traffic jams on the BQE and boils over in passive-aggressive emails. I started digging. Quietly. Hired a PI buddy from the agency, ex-cop named Rico, who owed me for a pro bono logo redesign. What are we looking for? Liz? He grunted over IPAs at a dive in Greenpoint. Everything, I said, clinking bottles. Bank records, old emails, that embezzlement beef. Proof she's been playing them like a fiddle. Turns out, Sarah hadn't just skimmed that nonprofit cash. She'd been running a side hustle for years, catfishing lonely dads on dating apps, draining their Venmos for emergencies. One poor schmuck in Staten Island lost his kid's college fund. And the kicker? Mom and Dad knew. Emails Rico pulled showed them wiring her rent money from their fixed income, even after the lawsuit. For the greater good, Dad wrote in one. Hypocrites. The lot of them. By week 4, the candle was a bonfire. I met Sarah for coffee in a hipster spot off Bedford, exposed brick. Overpriced lattes. The soundtrack of our fractured lives. She breezed in late, all boho chic in a thrift store dress, hugging me like we were sorority sisters. Lizzie, this is so crazy, right? Mom and Dad are just protective. I sipped my black coffee, bitter as bile. Protective? They're bankrupting me to bail you out again. Her eyes widened, feigned innocence. It's not like that. I need stability. You know, you've always been the golden child. House. Career. The works. Share the wealth. Sis. Share the wealth. Like it was a bake sale. Not my blood sweat equity lifeline. That's when I saw it clear as a Times Square marquee. She wasn't just leeching, she was the architect. The embezzlement? She'd planted the paper trail on my laptop that night, knowing I'd take the heat because I always did. The lawsuit? Her idea. Whispered in Mom's ear over chamomile tea, painting me as the prodigal bitch who'd forgotten her roots. I smiled then, slow and sharp.
Sure. Sarah.
Let's talk stability. We hashed a deal over crumbly scones. I'd gift her the house. But in exchange, she'd drop the suit, go to therapy,
Get a job.
on paper. Mort drafted it sloppy, but it stuck. Judge signed off. Case closed. Mom cried tears of joy at the family dinner they threw, pot roast and prayers in their queen's split level. Dad clapped my shoulder. First time in years. Proud of you, kiddo. Sarah hugged me tight, whispering, "You're the best, Liz."
Lies.
All glossy as a campaign ad. But I had my own fine print. Rico's files burned a hole in my laptop. And as I handed over the keys that humid July evening, watching Sarah prance through the door like she'd conquered Versailles, I felt the first twist of the knife I'd buried deep. Revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon through Hell's Kitchen, dodging traffic and temptation. Mine started with a forged email chain, time-stamped just right, accidentally forwarded to Mom's inbox. Subject: Sarah's side gig. Need help covering? The reply came at dawn. What is this?
Lizzie?
Lies. I typed back. Fingers flying like accusations. Check the attachments. Bank statements don't lie. By noon, the house phone was ringing off the hook, Dad's voice, gravelly with betrayal. We need to talk. Now. I met them at the diner on Myrtle, the one with the greasy spoons and Formica counters scarred like old grudges. Sarah was there too, makeup smudged, eyes darting like a cornered rat. It's fake, she spat. Lizzie's framing me, framing.
Pot. Kettle.
But I let them stew, dropping bombshells like confetti at a funeral. The catfishing logs. The nonprofit audit I'd rediscovered. Even a voicemail from that Staten Island mark. Voice cracking. Your daughter's a thief. Mom clutched her pearls, literal ones, from her confirmation, whispering prayers under her breath. Dad's face purpled, veins popping like overripe tomatoes.
Why?
Sarah? Why us? She flipped then, lightning quick, the chameleon skin shedding. Because you never believed in me. Lizzie gets the praise. The house. Everything. I had to fight dirty just to breathe. It was a spectacle, plates clattering, waitress hovering like a referee. I sat back, sipping sludge coffee, the Avenger in yoga pants. But here's the controversy. The gray smear on the black and white. Was I any better? I'd taken the fall for her once. Yes. But holding this over her head now, it reeked of the same manipulation, just with better branding. That night, alone in my sublet crash pad, a glorified closet in Bushwick, I stared at the ceiling fan whirring like accusations. Revenge tasted like ash, but I swallowed it down. Phase 2 was brewing, a little birdie tip to the DA's office about unresolved embezzlement leads. Anonymous. Of course. Sarah's fresh start, about to hit a pothole the size of the Grand Canyon. The DA's office moved slower than a rush-hour F train, but when they finally bit, it was biblical warrants served at dawn. blue lights painting the brownstone like a crime scene from one of those Netflix docs Mom binged. I watched from across the street, hood up against the drizzle, heart hammering like a bass drop at a rooftop rave. Sarah in cuffs, mascara rivers down her cheeks, Mom wailing on the stoop in her housecoat. Dad just stood there, hands limp at his sides. The fight drained out like bad oil. "This is your doing, isn't it?" he rasped when he spotted me later, over stale donuts at the precinct waiting room.
Me?
I played the innocent, wide-eyed filial duty.
Dad.
I tried to warn you. For years. Lies layered like phyllo dough, flaky and full of air. But the truth gnawed. I timed it perfect. Right after Sarah signed the house over in a panic, deed back in my hot little hands, courtesy of a duress clause Mort snuck in. Legal jujitsu. Baby. She got 30 days pretrial in county, enough to marinate in her own bile. Mom stopped speaking to me altogether, her silence a weapon sharper than any courtroom cross-exam. Dad sent passive-aggressive texts, Bible verses about forgiveness, interspersed with pleas for bail money. I wired it. $5,000. Petty cash from my latest client win because cutting them off cold? That'd make me the monster, not the martyr. Sarah's flip came in a collect call from lockup. Voice tinny through the receiver. "Lizzie.
Please.
I get it, you're pissed. But this? It's overkill. We're sisters. Overkill. From the girl who'd once keyed my first car because I stole her spotlight at a family barbecue. I leaned into the booth's sticky vinyl, the jail's fluorescent buzz humming like a migraine. Sisters share.
Right?
Like you shared that felony rap with me. Silence. Then a sob, real or rehearsed. Who knew? I was scared. Okay? You always fixed it. But I swear. The lawsuit. That was Mom's idea. She hates how you left us behind. Left them behind. The narrative flip. Classic Sarah. Blame the success story for shining too bright. But it stuck. A barb in my ribs. Had I ditched the Queens cul-de-sac for Manhattan mixers? Traded potlucks for power lunches? Maybe. The call ended with her begging for a character witness statement. And against every screaming neuron, I said yes.
Why?
Because revenge without mercy is just cruelty in heels. And I wasn't her yet. Not quite. Court day 2 was a pressure cooker, sweltering August in the Queen's criminal court, fans wheezing futilely against the humidity. I took the stand in a crisp sheath dress, hair twisted into a chignon-like armor. The ADA, a shark in a cheap suit, led me through the script, the embezzlement cover-up, Sarah's patterns of deceit, the lawsuit as extortion. MS. Harper, did your sister ever express remorse? He prompted, all earnest eyebrows. I paused, the courtroom clock ticking like a bomb. Mom in the gallery, clutching Dad's hand, eyes pleading. Sarah at the defense table, pale as Wonder Bread, her public defender shuffling papers like losing lottery tickets. Remorse? I echoed, voice steady as a subway rail. Once. But actions speak louder. The gallery murmured, scandalized gasps from Mom's church brigade, a few nods from the jury box, blue-collar types who knew a grift when they smelled one. I stepped down to whispers, the weight of eyes like spotlights on a bad audition. But the real drama detonated during cross. Sarah's lawyer, a weaselly type with a comb-over,
Pounced.
MS. Harper, isn't it true you've benefited from your sisters? Misfortunes? That bonus from the ad agency? It came after you heroically resolved that nonprofit scandal, painting yourself as the savior. Objection overruled. The courtroom held its breath. I straightened, chin up. I earned every cent. And yeah, I covered for her because family. But enabling theft? That's not love. That's a loan shark in a muumuu. Laughter rippled, nervous, divisive. Mom's face crumpled. Dad buried his head. Sarah shot me a look that could curdle milk, hatred,
Yes.
but laced with something sharper, recognition. She taught me this game. After all, the judge called recess, and in the hallway, chaos erupted. Mom cornered me by the vending machine, finger jabbing like a bayonet. How could you? She's your blood.
Blood.
That word again, sticky as the soda stain on her blouse. And you're my daughter. But look what you've become, a vengeful harpy, twisting the knife for sport.
Harpy.
It stung, because damn if it didn't fit the mirror. I'd started this to reclaim my life, my house, my sanity.
But now, it was a bonfire.
Consuming everything, trust,
Ties.
the fragile illusion of Harper's solidarity. Dad pulled her away, muttering about letting God sort it, but his eyes said it. Disappointment, deep as the Marianas. Sarah got bail. Naturally, my money. Their signatures. We reconvened at the brownstone that night. Not for dinner, but detonation. Takeout ties scattered on the coffee table. Steam curling like ghosts. We end this, I said, voice low. Sarah, you plead out. Community service. Restitution. I dropped the civil suit on the house. She laughed, bitter as burnt lemongrass. Generous?
Sis.
But what's your angle? You gonna keep playing puppet master? Flips again, accuser to accused in a heartbeat. Mom nodded furiously.
See?
She's controlling us all. Controlling. The irony burned hotter than the pad thai. I'd taken the fall for Sarah's crime. Sacrificed my rep, my savings, only for them to crown her the victim. But here's the rub. The controversy that had split a jury. Was I controlling? Or just surviving? In America, you pull yourself up. Sure, but when family's the boot on your neck, do you kick back or kneel? I chose the gray. Fine, I said, pushing a folder across the table. Rico's full dossier. Unredacted. Plead. Or this goes viral. Not just DA podcasts. Substack. The whole true crime circus. Your artistic struggles laid bare for the world. Sarah's eyes widened, then narrowed to slits. Blackmail. Classy. Lizzie. Mom gasped. Dad sighed. The sound of a man folding his last hand. She signed the plea deal by midnight. Pen scratching like claws on chalkboard. 30 months probation. $5,000 back to the nonprofit. Peanuts. But a start. The house stayed mine. Locks changed by dawn. But victory tasted like hospital jello, wobbly, artificial. I moved in fully that weekend. Boxes thumping like heartbeats in the empty halls. First night, I poured a glass of cheap Cabernet on the back porch. Fireflies winking like conspirators. The city hummed distant sirens, laughter from the bodega crowd. Freedom.
Right?
Except the text started. Sarah's burner number. Anonymous at first. You think this ends it? Watch your back. Then Mom's. A single emoji. A broken heart. Dad went radio silent. But I knew he was the schemer now. The quiet architect. whispering to aunts and cousins about the troubled daughter who'd torn the family asunder. Phase 3 crystallized over Labor Day weekend, humidity thick as regret. A client gig took me to LA, pitching a revenge-themed campaign for a true crime streaming service, irony dripping like palm sweat. Boardwalk strolls, in-and-out runs. But my mind looped on loops, Sarah's flips, Mom's manipulations, Dad's enabling complicity. Back in Brooklyn, Rico called with the dirt. Dad had been dipping into Mom's IRA for Sarah's emergencies, 20 grand over 2 years. Signatures forged in her shaky hand. The ultimate betrayal, layered like an onion of deceit. He wasn't just a bystander. He was the banker, funding her chaos while preaching piety. I confronted him at the parish hall after Mass, stale coffee and donuts, the scent of incense clinging like sin. Dad.
The accounts.
How long? He deflated, shoulders slumping under his polo. It was for peace. Lizzie. Your mother's health. Cancer scare last year. The one I'd paid for the second opinion on.
Peace.
At my expense. Always. You gambled our safety nets on her roulette wheel, I said. Voice steel. He teared up. Real ones.
This time.
Forgive me. The plea hung, divisive as a ballot box. Forgive? In America, second chances are currency, but bankrupt ones? They bounce. I walked out into the Indian summer glare, decision crystallizing, no more half measures. The revenge climax brewed, not in courtrooms or collect calls, but in the quiet weapon of exposure. A blog post, anonymous but airtight, the Harper heist, how one family's love built an empire of lies, drafted on the red-eye home, laced with scans, timelines, the raw math of betrayal. I hit publish at 3 a.m. EDT. From my kitchen island, the same table where it had all shattered. Shares spiked by breakfast, Reddit threads dissecting the toxic sibling saga, Twitter storms calling it peak millennial family dysfunction. Controversy erupted. Was I whistleblower or witch hunter? Victim or vigilante? Mom called first. Voice a rasp. Take it down. Elizabeth. You're destroying us.
Us.
Always us. Never me. Sarah's followed. Venomous. Bitch. You'll pay. Dad? A voicemail. Broken. Why?
Kiddo?
We could have talked.
Talked.
As if words hadn't failed us for decades. The post went viral. Podcasters demanding for deets. A producer sniffing a docuseries. Polarizing. Yes, half hailed my courage. The other decried my heartlessness. No heroes here. Just survivors clawing through the rubble. But the tension coiled tighter. A spring about to snap. Sarah vanished that week, ghosted probation, skipped town on a Greyhound to God knows where. Mom spiraled. Pills and prayers. Dad sold the Queen's house to cover debts. Vanishing into a motel limbo.
Me?
I fortified new security system. Therapy sessions unpacking the Avengers' burden. It was tense. You am as a blackout. The city pressing in like judgment. And then, the twist whispered on the wind. A letter. Postmarked Chicago. Sarah's scrawl. The envelope sat on my doormat like a landmine. No stamp. Just my name in that loopy script, Elizabeth. With the Z looped like a noose. I slid it open with a butter knife. Heart thudding against my ribs like a fugitive. One sheet. Yellow legal pad. Words spilling frantic. Lizzie.
I'm sorry.
Not for the games, the survival. But for dragging you down with me. The truth? That embezzlement wasn't just me. Dad pushed it. Creative accounting for the church youth fund. Shortfalls he covered with Mom's jewelry pawned on the sly. I took the fall first.
But you.
You made it stick. Hero complex?
Sis.
We're the same. You and me, fixers breaking under the weight.
Don't look for me.
Burn this.
Love. S. Boom.
The twist that flipped the script harder than a bad acid trip.
Dad.
The pious pillar. The enabler-in-chief. Architect of the original sin. Not just complicit, culpable. The youth fund. Kids' trips to D.C. Bibles for the homeless. All smoke and mirrors over his gambling Jones. OTB parleys on Yankee games. Losses funneled through Sarah's art projects. She'd confessed to me years back. Half drunk at a dive. But I dismissed it as paranoia.
Now?
The pieces slotted. Her flips weren't chaos. They were cover fire for his house of cards. And me? I'd armored it all. Taking her heat to spare the family the implosion. Blood debt. Repaid in Betrayal's coin. I burned the letter in the backyard fire pit that night. Flames licking the edges as crickets chorused indifferent. Smoke curled acrid. Stinging eyes already raw from the viral fallout. The blog post had crested. New York Post pickup. Brooklyn sis spills family tea. Is it justice or just desserts? Comment sections war zones. Empowerment arc versus. Petty AF therapy. Not takedowns. A producer from that true crime streamer offered 6 figures for rights. I goes to her. Money couldn't buy absolution. And I wasn't shopping for it anymore. But the tension ratcheted. Dark and viscous as the Gowanus muck. Dad resurfaced a week later. Phoning from a payphone. Relic move. Like he was dodging feds. Lizzie. We gotta meet. Coffee shop on Atlantic. Noon.
His voice.
That gravelly timbre from bedtime stories turned cautionary tales. I almost hung up. But curiosity's a cruel puppeteer. The diner was a time capsule, linoleum peeling. Jukebox crooning Springsteen. He slid into the booth. Gaunt under the fluorescence. Flannel hanging loose like shed skin. Sarah sent the note? I nodded. Stirring sugar into coffee that could strip paint. Explained a lot. Your piece came with a price tag. He winced. Fingers drumming the formica, same tick from when he'd lose at cards. It started small. Vet bills for the dog. Then the horses at Aqueduct. Church needed me. Harold Harper. The Rock. But rocks crack.
Kiddo. Crack.
Understatement of the century. He spilled then. Floodgates creaking. 20 years of siphoning. Sarah his reluctant accomplice since teens, forging checks. Laundering through her gigs. The lawsuit, his masterstroke. Desperation dressed as devotion. Thought if we got the house, we'd flip it.
Square the debts.
Your success. It blinded us. Jealousy. Pure poison. Jealousy. The American serpent. Coiled in every cul-de-sac dream deferred. I leaned back. Booth squeaking protest. And Mom? She knew. He shook his head. Eyes down. Suspected. Turned a blind eye. Cancer meds make you soft.
Soft.
Or strategic. The flips multiplied. Dad from enabler to confessor. Sarah from villain to victim proxy. Me from avenger to architect of the apocalypse. What now? I asked. Voice flat as the check he'd never pay. He slid a thumb drive across the table. Bank logs. Ledgers. The devil's accounting. Fix it. Or finish it. Your call. The choice hung, heavier than the rain starting to patter the window.
Report him?
Feds would feast, elder fraud, conspiracy, the works. Walk away, let the sins fester. A family crypt sealed with silence. Controversial either way, justice as jail time, or mercy as complicity. In this land of litigious grace, where Karens call cops on BBQs and influencers monetize trauma, who gets to judge? I pocketed the drive. Stood without a word. Outside, the avenue pulsed, delivery bikes dodging cabs, vendors hawking knockoff shades. Tension peaked there. Under the awning, his hand on my arm, pleading, paternal. Lizzie, forgive. Like the good book.
The book.
Irony's sharpest blade. I pulled away, rain slicking my coat. Forgiveness isn't free.
Dad.
But neither's the truth. I walked the blocks home. City symphony swelling, horns blaring recriminations. Pedestrians brushing past like judgments unspoken. The climax crashed that evening. Not in thunder but a knock. Fists on the door. Insistent as debt collectors.
Mom.
Drenched. No umbrella. Eyes wild under the porch light. He's gone, she gasped. Collapsing into my arms. First hug in months. Brittle as autumn leaves. Packed a bag after he left. Left a note. Can't face the music. Love you both. Suicide note vibes. But Rico's text confirmed. Dad on a bus to Atlantic City. Last bets burning bridges. Mom sobbed on my couch. The one-eyed reupholstered in neutral gray. Ironic sanctuary. I knew. Lizzie.
Bits.
Turned away because.
What?
Facing it meant admitting we broke you first.
Broke me.
The admission cracked something fundamental. A levee bursting. We talked till midnight, raw, unfiltered. The underbelly of our American Idol, immigrant grandparents' sacrifices diluted into suburban rot. My climb the only spark, snuffed by their shadows. Sarah called midway, from a motel in Ohio, voice steady. Sober maybe. He bolted? Figures. The note. I lied about some. He confessed to me last year. Begged me to take the heat again. I said no, first time ever. That's why the lawsuit push. Force your hand. Expose the rot.
Exposed.
We all were now, naked under the Klieg lights of consequence. Mom stayed the night, curled on the guest bed like a penitent. Dawn brought decisions, divisive as a hung jury. I drove her home, the Q train rattling parallel like a cautionary echo. At the empty split level, she clutched my hand. The house yours. Truly. But us? Can we rebuild? Rebuild. The word dangled. Controversial hook. Forgiveness as fresh start. Or fool's errand. I chose the twist. The one that'd spark barroom brawls and book club feuds. I turned the drive over to the DA. But not for Dad, for the victims. Church elders got first dibs on restitution. A fund I'd seed with my viral windfall. Dad? I tracked him to a seedy boardwalk flophouse. Not with cops, but coffee black. No sugar. Turn yourself in, I said, waves crashing indifferent behind. Plead out. Rehab. Not Rikers. He nodded, tears mixing with salt spray. For you, kiddo. For me. Or for absolution's illusion. Sarah surfaced months later, clean, courtesy of a NA group in Cleveland, temp gig at a print shop. We met neutral, Central Park. Autumn leaves crunching underfoot like old grudges. Truce, she offered, extending a hand inked with a phoenix, ironic tattoo. I shook, skin to skin, the first untainted touch.
Truce.
But therapy group. All of us. Mom signed on. Dad too from his halfway house. Sessions in a nondescript office off Times Square, couch circles. Tears and truths tumbling like dice. Ending? Not tidy Hollywood, no group hug under credits. It's bi-kitsch laced with hope. The kind that debates over Thanksgiving turkey. Did I win? Or just trade one cage for another? The house thrives now. Airbnb on weekends to fund the reparations pot. Family dinners tentative. Laced with remember whens that sting less each time. Sarah's sketches hang on my fridge, raw.
Real.
Dad calls weekly. Voice steadier. Mom gardens in my yard. Dirt under nails like renewal. But the shadow lingers. Tension in quiet moments. Was revenge the cure? Or the cancer? In this fractured republic, where betrayal's the national sport, maybe the win is just enduring, scarred, scheming no more, but scheming enough to survive. Blood's thicker than water.
Sure.
But revenge? It's the ink that writes the will.